Good morning, everybody, from sunny and warm South Florida. I'm Lauren Cohen, international legal and real estate expert, and I am the host of Investing Across Borders, where we teach you how to navigate a path to invest, live, work, and play across borders. And I am here today with my guest. We'll call him Polish Peter, because I don't even think I can potentially pronounce his last name, but he is an awesome, awesome guy who started on his own podcast called Masters Unite. And at Masters Unite, he invited me about a year ago, right, Peter?
Mm-hmm.
Around
Yep, it's been
the
about a
beginning
year now.
of
Yeah.
COVID, I think, when we had
Mm-hmm.
no idea what we were in for at all. We just had a great conversation. We connected, and my social media person was putting out some messages about that podcast about a couple of weeks ago, and we reconnected, and I invited Peter to join the show. And he has quite an amazing story about his background. And I just found out that not only that, but he is in the midst of being trained as a Tony Robbins master coach. Now, anybody that doesn't know Tony Robbins anywhere in the world, they have to have their head in the sand or not
Yeah.
come out of their room, or something is, or they're a monk. I don't know.
Yeah.
How did that? First of all, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Please introduce yourself as best you wish, and then let's talk a little about Tony.
Yeah. So first and foremost, Lauren, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I love what you're doing with this podcast because when I heard you, talking about investing without borders, and my podcast is interviewing immigrants, I'm like, what? That is amazing that somebody else is stepping up and doing those kinds of things as well. So my background, as I originally was born in Poland, so there's the little accent, that's where it comes from. Came to United States when I was 14 years old, didn't speak any English. I think I'm still learning. I don't think you can ever learn this language completely.
I'm still learning, and it's my first language.
Right. And, I remember thinking back in the day, like, so wait a minute, am I Polish or am I Polish? Right? That's the whole thing about English language. It's all about context. But anyway, so I came here, learned the language, went to college, went to high school, got a degree in architecture. I was an architect for a while until about 2008 when the whole real estate bubble crashed and burst. And
the first time.
But yeah, and the whole architect, profession, evaporated basically here in Michigan because I live in Michigan.
Right.
And started my own company. And the company was basically helping real estate investors and agents market their businesses on the internet because I was always infatuated with the human mind. I was infatuated with, so there was marketing. I was infatuated with technology and things like that. So as that progressed, I evolved into having more insights, and I started learning more about the human behavior, the human mind. Why do we do the things that we do? Why don't we do certain things while we do the others? So that led me into learning about the psychology, human psychology, neuro scientist kind of stuff, and became a coach over time because people kept telling me, man, you should be a coach, So in about 2013, 14, I became a coach and got through all kinds of different trainings. And now I have a couple of masterminds, coaching masterminds, where I help people live their true vision, such that their assets, their stuff that they have in their life, assets are basically paying for their lifestyle. So they're not working for the money is working for them. And as far as Tony Robbins, when I first started going through the entrepreneurial kind of a, journey, this was early 2000s, there was 3 books that I read that had a big impact on me. The first one was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Second one was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. And the third book was Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within.
Mm-hmm. Those are the 3 books. I must agree with you on all 3 of those.
So that's how I had to know him, and I've been following him, and he's my mentor. He just doesn't completely know it. So, but I've studied him.
I've mentor that he doesn't completely know about. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I'm in this program right now, the Master Coach Program, a certified coach, and I just love what I do.
It's interesting when you think about somebody like Tony, and like, who's it going to be for our kids? Because I mean, eventually, Tony's not going to be doing this circuit anymore. As much as he's larger than life, he's still human. And you have to wonder who's going to replace that level of energy and charisma and everything and brilliance. I mean,
Right.
what a brilliant mind. And that voice is just so magnetizing. It's just amazing to be in his presence. And it's kind of like I always talk about who are the six people, the six artists that you would like to see in concert. Who knows about that now, but before, before they go, like Neil Diamond and Paul McCartney and, the classics. And who's going to be that person in the mindset and brilliance and training space? I don't know. Is there anybody that could ever be like Tony? Who knows? Maybe you.
Yeah. It'll be Polish Peter, right? No, I mean,
No.
I don't think he is a very unique individual. And if you know his story, it is an amazing story what he went through to get to where he's at right now. And I saw him in UPW in 2017 in New Jersey with about 15,000 other people. It's just incredible. I mean, the way the man brings the energy, it's just short of amazing. For about,
we're very fortunate.
Yeah.
We at EXP, my cloud-based real estate company I'm associated with, we're having Tony speak at our next live event in August.
Awesome.
He was supposed to speak, but last August, I think, but of course that got postponed. So he's supposed to speak, and it will be a much smaller room. So I bought the, platinum because of course I want to be as close to him as possible. Even though it doesn't matter how far you are from him, you can't help but be mesmerized by his energy and, jumping and clapping and jumping and clapping. It's just, okay. It's like he bounces, he doesn't walk. So, but anyway, this is not about Tony. There's more than enough stuff about Tony. This is about Lauren and Peter. And Peter, I was going to say, I didn't know that you were involved in the real estate industry. And, working with realtors and real estate professionals, there's a lot of mindset issues because real estate investors, one of the things that we teach our real estate investors is mindset is 90% of the battle.
Yeah.
Obviously you have to find the deals, you have to be able to analyze them. But if your mindset is not in the right place, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to hit your head against the wall every single time.
Yep.
So, I don't know if you're aware, because when we spoke last year, this was not my signature program. I've developed it over COVID, but my signature program is Immigrate Through Real Estate. And that's one of my websites. So you need to check it out because you probably have some people that could benefit, because I've brought it full circle in that my real estate, being a realtor and a dually licensed lawyer, bringing it all together. And of course, being an immigrant, helping people to navigate their path. That's why I have this podcast. That's why I have the tagline. So it's definitely a nice fit. So are you, now you're working exclusively as a coach and no longer as an architect or anything in the real estate industry other than maybe
exclusively
realtors and real estate professionals?
Yeah, exclusively as a coach. And by the way, I love that you are combining that immigration thing with real estate because, in my podcast, I've interviewed almost 100 people now, and they're all immigrants. And one commonality that I found out for those people, because they're very successful, some of them are multimillionaires, some of them they're successful in their own right. And real estate is one of the most common vehicles for them to be able to be successful in life.
I think it's the most common vehicle for anybody.
It's a great combination that you put together.
I mean, immigrant for sure. And one of the things that I focus on is helping people that maybe are not immigrating, but want to invest in US or Canadian, but mainly US real estate, because there's so much misinformation out there. And there's so many bad apples that just teach you this is the way to do it in America. It's one size fits all, and it's not. Like dealing with somebody from Poland, I would deal with that person very differently and handle, brings in somebody that understands taxes in Poland and the US versus in Canada and the US versus in the UK and the US. And the rules and laws are different. And also the interaction between the countries, because some have more visas available than others. So it's all about looking at each client individually. And that's what makes my world go round, and it's exciting. So so tell us, how long did it take you to learn English? I mean, I've heard a lot of stories. Obviously I didn't have that issue as an immigrant because I'm from Canada and I think I speak English. But I mean, most people when they come, I've been thinking of moving to Israel with my son, and now he's 10, and I'm wondering, he has a background in Hebrew, but how hard is it to become fluent?
Well, for me, it took me, I would say, there's a phases that you go through, right? But ultimately, to actually understand and be able to speak English, probably 10 months or so.
Oh, that's not
I was 14 at the time, right?
right.
And the
Okay.
younger you are,
The easier.
your brain is more, how do I say this, open
Yeah.
to bringing new information, right? And there's all science behind it, but your son's not gonna have a problem learning the language, that's for sure. But you go through stages. Like I remember going through thinking, okay, somebody said something in English, I will have to translate it in my head in Polish, then convert it to English in my head, and that would speak out in English, right? And then you start going and further. But it took me to be able to understand what people are saying probably 5 6 months, and to be able to actually communicate about 10 months.
Hmm. Yeah, it's easier to understand than to speak.
Yeah.
So absolutely. And even though I understand certain languages, I don't speak as well, and part of it is just because I'm afraid, because I don't want to say the wrong thing or mess up the way I say it, just like you said about Polish or Polish, right?
Hmm.
Because that's a constant thing, especially when you're looking at a language that's completely foreign to you. French is not so challenging, although you still can say things wrong. So tell me a little bit about the podcast and what made you develop that podcast. Like why dealing with immigrants? What's the why? Just because of you?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things, obviously, I'm immigrant myself, right? And what I've saw back in the day is a lot of the immigrants that come into the country, a lot of them were kind of disempowered because I'm
Yeah.
starting at the bottom, right? Or I don't have the same opportunities as others have. You were born here, so you know the language, all this kind of stuff. So, but I don't, right? So there was a lot of kind of a disempowering kind of a idea going around. So one of the things I think was back in, I don't know what year it was. I saw statistics that said that 43% of Fortune 500 companies were started by first or second generation immigrants.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm like, wait a minute, almost half of the Fortune 500 companies were
Yeah.
started by
It's
immigrants.
amazing.
How is that? So I went onto this journey. I started researching and interviewing successful immigrants, first or second generation immigrants, and asking them the questions, why do you think you're successful? What had you be successful? And it's just amazing to not only hear their stories, of them coming here and all that kind of stuff. Some of them have short of unbelievable stories. I mean, I landed in Chicago with a suitcase in my hand and no English. But some of those other guys who literally, I know one gentleman literally on a little fishing boat in the middle of the ocean, escaped from Vietnam, like a
Hmm.
fishing boat.
Hmm.
It's Think
It's
about it.
funny
I
you
mean,
say
it's
that because
unbelievable.
the woman I interviewed on Monday, a good friend of mine, Quinn Vo, she lives in Calgary in Canada. And that
Hmm.
she said I was one of the boat people. Now they went to
Yeah,
Canada, but it's that same, not the same fishing boat, but that same
right.
concept. And for
Yeah.
me, when I say I'm an immigrant, people are like, "What? What?" Like not that long ago, I was introduced to somebody in Canada also, and she had a very thick accent, and I guessed where it was from, and she almost bit my head off. She
Wow.
said, "How dare you? I'm an immigrant. You're disrespectful." I go, "Really? I'm an immigrant too." She goes, "Where are you
Mm.
an immigrant from?" I go, "Well, I'm from Canada and I live in the US. And let me tell you, I had to do all the same stuff that everybody else did.
Mhm.
Canadians may have a little bit easier time because there's
Yeah,
different visas available, but we still have to do it. I had to go through the green card. My ex-husband was deported. Like, hello, people. It wasn't an easy ride for me
right,
just because I speak the language." So you're saying
right,
that obviously, on top of all of that, there's the speaking the language piece. And one of the
right,
things that I try to do for my clients is, because even if you speak the language, you don't necessarily speak the language of business or the language of investing, and it's different, and it's different in Canada, and it's different in Poland, and it's different in Israel, and it's different in Greece and Brazil.
yes,
And you need somebody to be your guide, to hold your hand, and maybe Peter can help with the coaching and helping you with mindset and helping you with focus. And I'm going to help you navigate your path because it's a complicated path. And anybody that thinks it's easy is going to end up in a mess. And I mean, we
yeah,
see the stories all the time. So not everybody's going to be the Elon Musks of the world, right? Who's one
yeah.
of
I
those
mean, yeah,
multi-billionaires
he's one
that
of those,
is,
but if you know, one of the things that I've, as far as mindset, you mentioned that one of the things that I started doing a while back is starting watching, listening, learning, and reading about people who are successful,
Yeah.
right? Getting into their mind, kind of. So biographies are a great way, or autobiographies are a great way to get into those. And he's one of those brilliant people who, it's just, guy is just unbelievable what he can accomplish. I mean, I don't even know how he does it, but it's unbelievable.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And the other thing about being an immigrant, it's like coming through a war, because after World War II, look at how much success was created by the people that had
yeah.
been through the war, especially those that were in Nazi Germany or Poland, which when it was occupied and everything. And they did, I mean, they built or rebuilt America. But
Hmm.
immigrants, especially when you come with a suitcase in hand, look, I was on food stamps when my son was first born, and he's 10. And
Hmm.
I was embarrassed, like beyond belief, to be in that situation, but I had no choice. And
Hmm.
at the time I was no longer a quote unquote immigrant, but I didn't have the same social welfare system as I would have in Canada, my home country. But when you're an immigrant, you have drive. You have a different level of drive because you don't have a choice. And I think that that drives us to be that much more successful. Would you agree?
Yeah, and then the why behind it. You know, one of the things that I remember. So my mom came to United States about 6 years before I got here.
Oh,
So I ended up living with my aunt, my uncle for about 6 years back in Poland, from age of 8 to 14.
were you an only
Okay.
child?
No, me and my sister. So we
Okay.
lived there with my aunt, my uncle. She came here to make some money, right?
Right.
And
Get
then she
something
was
going.
going to come back to Poland. Now, here's the thing. Until I had my own kids, I did not get what it took for her to be able to do that. It is, I can't even imagine leaving my kids for 6 years, fly across the ocean where you cannot just get in a car and then just drive over there to see them, right? And back then, this was like late 80s, early 90s. If you wanted to make a phone call, it cost you like $20,000 a minute, kind of a thing,
Right.
right?
I remember there's
Yeah.
those phone cards, and oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And you could barely ever get through, right? So
Right.
we used actually wrote letters, and do little cassettes.
Wow.
But I could not imagine what it took for her to do that. So that drive, that why of actually having to do this is what's, I think, that drives a lot of people to do this, because she told me she cried many nights of the fact that she wasn't
Of
there with
course
us.
she did. I
But I
mean,
had to
it's,
drive her like for what she was doing for us, you know what I
of
mean?
course.
And
Yeah.
you're a mother yourself, so you can probably empathize with that,
And I'm a
because
single
it's
mom.
unbelievable.
Was your mom a
Yeah.
single mom doing this all by
Well, yeah,
herself?
my parents got divorced when I was 8.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after the divorce, and she came here.
Yeah. I mean,
So
you've got to do what you got to do. And sometimes my son does not understand because I work so hard. And
one day he will.
right, he will, God willing. I
Speaking
pray
from a
every
son
day.
that was like that, yeah, he will.
Yeah.
Trust me, one day he will. When he has his own family, or maybe even earlier,
I hope a
he's gonna
little
look back and
earlier.
like, wow, yeah. So my mom waited a long time, but now I'm waiting with my kids, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
for
one day they're
sure.
gonna get it. So
So you're currently living in Detroit, right?
about 30 minutes north of Detroit in the suburbs there, yeah. Mhm.
Which suburb is it?
It's called Shelby Township.
Okay. There's a lot of hockey fans there, huh?
A lot of Detroit Red Wings hockey fans. Just want to point that out. This is the hockey town. All right, I know you see the maple flag there, but this is hockey town.
I
This is the
think Hockey
capital of
Town is
hockey.
north of the border, sorry. But yeah,
Oh, well, that's the
there's
Canadian wishing Washington thing.
right. There's a lot of real estate opportunities in Detroit right now, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Mhm.
I mean, people, like, you can buy real estate for a few $1,000s. It's not like,
Yeah,
crazy numbers like Ohio, Detroit. Are you involved in real estate investing now?
not currently, but I have several bunch of students who are investing, that I help them lead through it, and they're investing either wholesaling or
Right.
flipping, or Airbnbs are very popular right now too. The short-term rentals, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we do a lot of that kind of stuff.
Cool. Yeah, everybody wants to be in real estate. I've never had so many inquiries in my entire life as now. because it's like, oh, and it's not only, I don't only help people invest in the US and Canada. I help North Americans invest outside of North America. Like I have a
Hmm.
client that's building in Honduras, Mexico, Italy, Spain, Israel,
Oh.
you name it. Portugal. Portugal is a big one right now, because there's a golden visa available. So it's not just about inbound, but it's about outbound, and you're still an immigrant. So, but
Hmm.
if you're investing overseas or in another country from North America, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to immigrate. But there's advantages and disadvantages, and having written a couple of books about immigrants, it's been interesting to realize the scope of how much of this country, America, has been built by immigrants, because it's an immigrant-oriented country. And
Yeah.
when the last administration, which we're not going to talk about politics, but it was really sad to see some of the immigration policies, because it really was very negative toward immigrants, and immigration lawyers were not the biggest fans. But it all balances out, and I hope that immigrants will start coming again. I know that they are interested and intrigued, and I think that the reality is that as time goes on and the opportunities open more, we're going to have more and more demand, and the borders open as well. That's going to change things too. So tell me a little bit about when you were named as one of the most influential people in the top 100 most influential people on the internet.
Right. So this is a Fast Company magazine, and basically it was almost like a contest. We had to go and show some kind of proof and get involvement from people around the internet into your own circle, into your own tribe. So this was a few years back. It was a fun project, and I love being participating in it, and ended up being named top 100. So this was a great privilege to be able to do that.
And that
So,
probably buys you a lot of credibility when you're as a coach.
yeah, it does buy some credibility, right? Yeah, it helps. Um, but it's all about looking at in the eye of the beholder, right? And the thing about the credibility is, for those of you guys who are listening on the podcast, you got to look at not only it's great that I'm in the top 100 on LinkedIn. I'm in the top 10% of the people, or top 5 now. I'm not sure, but you have to look at not just about the awards, but you got to look at the results, and you got to look at the people who you are looking to work with. Are they, trustworthy, getting some recommendations from others to make sure that this person is actually does what he says he does, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Because there's a lot of, especially in today's world, you can pretty much get an award for anything, you know?
Aren't
So you
those
have to
the
be
four
careful on that.
agreements that honor your word, um, be impeccable with your word, and what did you
Hmm.
just say about? Oh, my goodness, I
Taking
can't remember.
responsibility is one of them. Yep, it's the 4 agreements. That's a great book, by the way.
Yeah,
So,
the four agreements, and suddenly they've escaped my brain. But the four agreements are really important, and one of them is if you say something, if you're gonna say you're gonna do something, do it, because
yep.
otherwise people lose faith, and you lose credibility, and that's really really
Hmm.
important. So that's another book we could add to your list, because the four agreements, and it's not even that you necessarily need it as a book. I should have it hanging up here so I don't forget it again. But
Right.
anyway, Peter, how do people reach you?
Well, people can reach me by, you can email me at peter@mastersunite.com, or go to one of my social profiles, like on Facebook. I'm on there, Coach Polish Peter. They can go to my website as well, the Masters Unite, where you can learn all those different podcasts. I have close to 100 right now, and I'm interviewing these
Including
immigrants,
me.
Lauren included. Yep, there's an episode on there. And so you can hear her interview. By the way, your story was pretty amazing. I loved having your interview on there,
Thank you.
because not only did you share some really cool things in there, but I think it helped people tremendously. So mastersunite.com was where all the podcast is, or you can find me anywhere on the internet, basically. So
Well, it's
should be
great to
able
be
to,
a
right?
part of your world. It's great to be connected with you. It's great to share our immigrant entrepreneur stories. And I don't know if you've heard of this book called The Immigrant Hustle, Stories of 50 Immigrant Entrepreneurs, but it's something that you should definitely look into.
Okay.
All of those entrepreneurs in that book, I'm one of them, would be good podcast interviewees for you. So
Great
check it
point.
out.
I love that. Okay,
It's
awesome.
called
I'll
Immigrant
definitely check it
Hustle,
out.
and it's by Amin Rahul, who was one of my guests on my show. So
All right, might
anyway,
have to interview him too.
yeah, he's a great guy. He's a great guy. So it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. This is Lauren Cohen, international legal and real estate expert. If you haven't had a chance yet, please subscribe on either Apple or Google or wherever you choose, Spotify, to my podcast, Investing Across Borders, and give it a 5-star rating. I'm Lauren Cohen, the host of Investing Across Borders, where we teach you how to invest, live, work, and play across borders. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.